Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, good evening, everybody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass is my partner, Mark Wages. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a couple of good days off. We did, but I'm really happy to be back. Yeah, I really am. You know, I miss you guys whenever we're not here, and I know Mark feels the same way because we talk about it a lot. But so tonight, you probably saw the thumbnail, and I know that some of you, because I'm going to get a couple of emails without fail, some of you are going to be going, good Lord, he's talking about fentanyl again. And I am, pretty much without apology. And it is what it is. We're not trying to be the fentanyl channel. We really are not. But the last time we spoke about it was 7 days ago today. Between the last time we spoke about it and today, somewhere in the ballpark of 2,200 Americans have died from it. And there just aren't enough people talking about this. And there are changes. Thank you, Brandon. There are changes that are taking place every day that really need to be talked about. And so much of it really dovetails into everything that we discuss here, right? Sort of the basic tenets of the lifeboat. For instance, we talk all the time about talking to your kids about drugs and how important it is that you are the one that sits down and has that conversation, that you don't trust this to teachers or police officers or coaches or whoever they decide down at the school to turn this over to. And one of the things that we've been saying since the very first day that we opened this channel is that if you lie to your kids, you're screwed, right? In terms of credibility, in terms of keeping them sober. If you lie to them about any drug, you're screwed. And there is always, thank you, Pagan, I appreciate that. There's always that temptation to make it worse than it is, right? There's always that temptation to just make drugs a little bit more evil than they actually are. And this is really a problem, right? If you take something like weed and you make it that much more dangerous. And you say, if you smoke this stuff, it's going to kill you. They're going to see people smoking this stuff and not dying. And when that happens, your credibility goes to crap. And unfortunately, then something like this happens. And you find yourself in the most dangerous time that anybody using drugs has ever found themselves in on this planet. There has never been a more dangerous time to be getting high in the world, but especially in this country. So now you go to your kids and you say, "Hey, this fentanyl stuff can kill you," and their response basically is, "Yeah, you said that about weed, right?" Thank you, Brandon. And yeah, people smashing that like button does go a long way to getting us to that 3,000 mark. We're about 97 people away from that 3,000 mark, and which is pretty exciting stuff. It really is. My bobbleheaded partner and I were hoping to get there before the end of the year. I have a pretty good feeling we're going to get that done. So, and we were going to mention before we get off the air, so you guys can start thinking about it now. If there's something you think we ought to be doing to celebrate that 3,000, aside from me eating Vegemite, which isn't going to happen, feel free to weigh in on that. If you want to force Mark to eat it, doesn't bother me at all. But
hey now,
yeah,
watch it.
but I certainly don't want to eat that stuff. But you understand what I'm saying? This is really one of those things where, like right now, even talking to you people, I know that because of emails I've got, there are people out there that think I'm riding the fear porn train and I'm using this as a way to try to build a channel. I'm not making up 2,000 dead people in 7 days. I'm not making up the fact that 300 people a day are dying from this. And I certainly am not, and we are not, making this worse than it is. If anything, we're probably coming up short on that. So if you saw the short we did the other day, great. If you haven't, there was a bust that happened in New York, and it's gotten a lot of traction in the news, probably because of how the dope was packaged. But there were 15,000 tabs of fentanyl, and it's that rainbow crap that we keep talking about. But this was packaged in a Lego box, and they say that the box was actually fairly professionally done. They said that each news source that I came across said that it reeked of cartel organization, right, or sophistication. So again, it kind of makes you think about your kids, doesn't it? When it comes packaged in a Lego box, and that's how they're smuggling it. Now, granted, people, they're not going to stick this into elementary schools. We're not here, creating fear where it doesn't need to be. However, once again, rainbow pills in a box that there's definitely overtones that really just sound like, this targets kids. Now, kids don't have money, right? So chances are they're not trying to sell dope to them, especially because this dope will kill them, right? There's no chance that any kid could do this, even the stuff that isn't deadly. Now, we've been saying from the word go that there's no quality control, that this is a very difficult drug to maintain an even amount of drug kept in the bonding agent. So if you do 500 pills, you should have one, increment of what goes bang, right, with all of the other inert stuff. Unfortunately, you'll get 2 or 3 pills that almost have nothing, and then you'll get 4 or 5 pills that have a big concentration of this. It's very difficult for them to ensure that they evenly spread this out over all the pills they're pressing. So with the batch that just got discovered in New York, 15,000 tabs, 40%, they tested every single one of these pills. 40% had what they considered to be a deadly amount of fentanyl in them, right? That's 6,000 pills. Now, the problem becomes if these things are in 3,000 pill lots, you could be going out and buying this stuff every day and getting high for weeks, right? No problem, right? This stuff, they're making a big deal about nothing, right? These pills aren't dangerous, blah, blah, blah. But look at how much of this I was doing 4 a day, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody breaks into that 3,000 load that all are tainted, that all are just plain and simple too strong. And herein lies the rub, right? I don't agree with much that the government does ever, right? Either side of the aisle, not a big fan of government. And I've made that pretty clear here. But right now, the government is pushing a hashtag that one pill can kill. And this is not, it's not an overreaction, people. I could sit and spend the rest of this show telling you horror stories about people that died from one pill, people that were not normal drug abusers. And a lot of them, Mark called me last night. It's pretty late, wasn't it? Or was it really early? One or the other.
One or
But
the
Mark
other, yeah.
in the middle of the night last night, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Reading about fentanyl, and how it's killing people." And while I was, there were some things that weren't there the last time I read, and that's why I continue to do this. But
Isn't that amazing, though, Tommy?
it is.
Doesn't it just shock you sometimes? You think you would know so much about this by now, and there's always something new.
It's changing every day,
Yeah.
and it's always a little bit more terrifying. The A couple of the stories that I was reading, one was of a kid in college who went and bought some pills because he wanted to study. Now, that in this particular case, he was not buying a painkiller. He was buying what he thought was Adderall. So that brings us to three distinctive type of drugs that we know for a stone cold fact they're pressing fentanyl into, right? So now we have fake benzos. We know that they're making Xanax bars and they're putting fentanyl into them, right? We know that the majority of what they're doing are fake Percocets, right? Fake Perc 30s, which is really just an OxyContin 30, but a fake Perc 30. And now we also have Adderall. So it really is another one of these things where we're not trying to make this worse than it is. But if you're taking a pill that you didn't get from a friggin' pharmacy, you're rolling the dice with your life. That's the truth of it. Now, the Center for Disease Control, all of the people that have anything to do with drugs in this country have recently come out and made some statements that are really kind of incredible. One is that this stuff isn't designed to even string you out, right? They did a really interesting interview the other day, and I'm not going to say what channel it's on because that'll divide us in half, won't it? So it's not one of the ones you think, but this interview was kind of fascinating because uh, that's honestly what came out of this person's mouth is that this isn't designed to get you addicted or string you out. This is designed to kill you, right? There's really no in between. This drug will kill you, and it isn't alpha fentanyl like we talked about so many times. The precursors are coming from the beast from the east. We know this, right? The big red menace is sending all of the precursors south of the border, where the cartels are then taking and producing this. And if you've ever, thought about um, any kind of pharmaceutical production, right? You got people in white suits, right, looking like hazmat suits, and they're in rooms that are hermetically sealed so that there's no dust, no nothing, and the quality control is just that's not what's happening here, right? These are guys sitting around smoking Marlboros, working in a shack, that very much looks like a public storage rental unit.
Wearing underwear only.
Exactly. And I mean, it's terrifying. And, from one recipe to the next, it's not even, predictable. There's nobody measuring things out to, they're taking stuff and going like this, sliding it across the top. Okay. That's good. There's just no way to do justice to just how dangerous this is. So I, to really look at where we're at today, you got to back up to the beginning of the opioid epidemic, right? A million people ago, a million deaths ago, the opioid crisis started, and it started with OxyContin. Now there were overdoses, there were people that died on this, but the numbers were really, really teeny when you compare them to what's happening today. They didn't seem like small numbers back then, and there were some standouts. There were some really big names of people that everyone had heard of. Philip Seymour Hoffman, right, got killed. Prince got killed. There was a lot of really big name people that were dying from doing, pills that were, you know, just too much for what they were taking, I guess is probably the best way to put it. But you were getting pills that were coming out of pharmacies, right? You were buying stuff that was made by Huffman LaRoche or by Johnson and Johnson. The as dangerous as that entire first part of the epidemic was, it was predictable, right? We knew that there was at least quality control on the stuff that people were taking. Today, the number of people who are trying to get opiates, not to get high, at this point to not get sick, right? For real. We're talking about people who are slaves to the drugs. And if you've ever been addicted to opiates, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The vast majority of these people aren't partying. They're not having a good time and talking about how much fun this is. They're just trying to stave off a sickness that is all encompassing, right? It's not like you can, I won't think about it, right? This won't be such a big deal. It is, and we've talked about this before, it's one of those things that takes mind, body, and soul and just completely twists you into a pretzel. So the vast majority, over 10% of the population right now, they're saying 10% of the population, 330 million people in the US, 10% of them need to come up with an opiate every day to not get sick.
Yep. Yep.
That's terrifying,
It is.
right? And the sad part is that who would have ever thought that there would have been a time that we would have hearkened back to the good old days when people were doing that safe drug, heroin?
Yeah.
How bizarre is that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
I wanted to read Full of Hope's comment here a while back. She's putting what we talk about here into practice, and it's paying off for her, I think, anyway. She says, lifeboat, my daughter and college friends are heading to Amsterdam for Halloween. She ducked out because they give her grief for not taking part. We talked about fetting, and she didn't know about it. So,
wow.
Yeah, so what she's saying there, guys, in case if you're kind of new here, she's saying that because we talk about talking to your kids about fentanyl or any kind of drug, for that matter, if she hadn't opened her mouth and these kids go over there and something was to happen,
yep,
you know what I mean? I mean, how would she have felt? And she followed up with another comment there too. Let me read it real quick. I think says her friends are. She's talking to Fi. Says her friends are buzzing, looking forward to trying whatever they can get. And it's like that's the mindset of a young adult, guys.
Absolutely,
it really is. So that's why it's so important. And I can't tell you how proud I am of her for just doing that. And I'm glad she did because obviously it's paying off. So great job.
Yeah, that really is absolutely huge. And when you want to send me an email and say you're doing too much of this fentanyl stuff, maybe you'd like to remember that this is life or death stuff, and that's not something that I'm saying. Unfortunately, we water down expressions to beat hell in our country, right? And that's one of those expressions that we water down. People will say there's an election coming up and it's life or death, or there's this coming up and it's life or death. No, life or death means you're going to die or you're not going to die. It's not a figure of speech. It's not any of that other garbage. Honestly, you remember the last show that we did? I went off and started really going on a pretty good rant about the beast from the east, about TikTok, about all kinds of stuff. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. It's a good one. But that was 7 days ago, people. 2,000 dead Americans. Wrap your brain around that. For perspective, how many people were in your school, right? When you went to high school, how many people were there? For me, this is something that always harkens back to prison, because most federal prisons have between 13 to 1,800 people in them. And occasionally you'd get in one that was a little bit larger and they would have, 2,000 to 2,400 people. And I remember that entire population getting sent outside at once when they were shaking down and going through what dogs were doing. And there would be 2,000 people standing out on a yard at the same time. And I remember just what a huge crowd of people that is. And we're losing that every week. That's disappearing every damn week. The last concert you went to, right? Think about how many people were there, even if it was a big one. If you go, no, the last one I went to was Rice Stadium. It was 70,000 people. Okay, so what, 35 weeks?
Yep.
Right? That's really where we're at. When I say this is life or death, this is life or death. And thank God for Full of Hope, right?
Yeah.
Thank God that she had that conversation, because Mark nailed it. That is the mindset. And if you're that far removed from the drug game, I'm not. I remember a time in my life where that was the absolute focus. And I don't mean when I was a heroin addict, because by that point, the absolute focus was just not getting sick.
Exactly.
Right. But I mean, when I was 16, 17, 18, and you read High Times magazine, and, you read books by Hunter S. Thompson, and everything was geared toward, how much of this could I do?
I want to read a comment here real quick. Actually, it's a question from Speak Life Garden Homestead and Permaculture. By the way, welcome. I'm not sure if
Welcome
I've seen
to the Lifeboat.
Yep. Asking how effective is Narcan for fentanyl.
A
Uh,
great question.
yes, it is. So you want to answer it? Or I can do it.
Sure, it is an absolutely amazing question. Now, to preface this answer a little bit, um, when you're talking about alpha fentanyl, which is actually what the street drug that these people are doing currently is based on, Narcan works on fentanyl. It does. It works actually pretty well. The street drug that is going around right now, not so much. Um, there are cases where people have had to be given 6 and 7 doses of Narcan to get the same effect that you would have gotten on one or two had that person been doing a normal, air quotes, normal opiate. One of the other things that we've seen is that very often with these pills, it's not just fentanyl, right? Very often with these pills, there is a benzodiazepine component that is being put into these pills. And of course, they're not buying Xanax, crushing it up and putting it in there. This is just like the drug is a bathtub version of an opiate. The benzo they're using is a bathtub version of a benzo, and you're getting the combination of the two of those. And we talked about them in a couple of shows. They call them zombie, they call them Frankenstein, right? All of these different names for it. Narcan does nothing. I'm being
Yeah.
dead serious. Nothing when it comes to those,
Benzos.
that kind of a combination, and you just don't know what's coming in on the pills. I had an email the other day from someone that said they were questioning something that I had said because they said no one would put fent into something like cocaine or speed because it goes completely against the grain, so to speak. In other words, if you're really trying to take a nap, you probably wouldn't drink espresso, right? That's logic.
But isn't that a
Um,
speedball, Tommy? Ain't that what?
yeah, it is, and a lot of people really dig speedballs, right? I was a pretty big fan of them for a long time, but that's not what's happening here. What's
Right.
happening here is this. Let's say that they're making a bathtub version of Adderall, right? So what they're doing is they're pressing a really serious amount of methamphetamine into a pill, right? Now you take that and you're just, I mean, wired to beat hell, and you're going to be up for a couple of days. And to a person that just takes it, they think they're getting a real strong blast of Adderall because Adderall is speed. It's not, street speed, but it is absolutely an amphetamine. So they put just enough of this in there to remove the jitters. It's not that you're going to do this and think, what? I thought I was getting speed, and instead I'm just wasted, and now I want to take a nap. It's not that kind of a situation. They're putting just enough fent into all of these things to take away the jitters, to calm you down. The speed is still going to get you flying for days on end. But the vested interest for the dope dealer is that if you do that speed every day for 2 weeks, try not doing it on day 22,
Yeah.
right? And watch what happens. You're going to get viciously ill, and they're going to have a customer for life, or death, right?
So doesn't it
Until
make
one of these things happens. Go ahead.
doesn't it make them like you're basically you become codependent?
You're catching two habits for sure, but
Yeah.
one of them is a fentanyl habit, and
Right.
they're doing the same thing with blow. They're doing the same thing, which is cocaine. They're doing it with all kinds of different drugs right now. And you say, why would they do that? Again, it's real job security if you're selling drugs. The other thing is this is a very very inexpensive. Um, I'm glad I'm addicted to peppers and hot sauce. Me too. Me too. Zen Wen,
Thank
we're
you.
glad that you're listening. Thank
Yep.
you so much. This really is one of those situations where this is a dirt cheap drug. You understand? It's dirt cheap. There is no massive processing that goes into this. When you think about, heroin, I got another email from somebody that said I couldn't get fent if I wanted to where I live. The only thing I could get is heroin. Number one, I don't buy that. Get some fent test strips and see what you're actually doing, right? Because more than likely you're not getting heroin. And the reason is this: the way that heroin is processed, right? Poppies have to grow. They have a little bulb on the top. People cut those bulbs in 3 spots, and a milky substance that's kind of yellow in color starts dripping out over the side. Over the course of 4 or 5 days, that stuff begins to harden and turn black. They come by with what looks like a credit card, and they scrape all of that off, and they just keep dumping it into a burlap sack until they get balls of this stuff this big. And then a chemical process of only about 3 different chemicals are put together. And they break this stuff down first to make it into a liquid, then they boil it, and then they wash it with. It's literally that simple. However, that requires a huge field, right? You're not growing poppies in your closet and putting out enough of these things to make heroin out of. So we're talking about hundreds and in some cases thousands of acres of poppy fields. Well, that is labor intensive, right? And imagine being able to make the same amount of money, if not more, without that field, without all those people going in there and cutting those bulbs, without all those people scraping that, without all the chemicals required. They're taking these precursors that are getting sent to them. And as we said, in really shabby little labs that are usually nothing more than a garage, they're putting together this stuff and then they're pill pressing it. This is such a cheap alternative to what they've been selling that they're going to put it in anything. They're going to put it in anything that they can put it in. People, if you've ever been addicted to opiates, you realize what a great customer you are. There's never going to be a day you don't buy. Whether you have to steal or prostitute yourself or whatever needs to happen, you're going to buy that damn drug 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The only time you don't is if you're incarcerated. That's usually the only thing that stops an addict or they get sober, right? There's no other option. You're going to just continue to buy it. So if you've got this stuff at your disposal, you would put it in everything that you could put it in. You want every single customer you have needing to call you every single day. Now, I don't think they even realize just how deadly what they're making is. Honestly, I don't think they have a handle on it because it's not in their best interest to kill off a large portion of the people paying them. However, that's what's going on. In the short that I did the other day, we also talked about,
The law.
yeah, opitata. I'm not sure what that is. We talked about a woman in North Carolina that just got busted. For an entire year, they built the case against this woman. And this woman was in the process of selling a drug that she knew that this stuff was killing people. There was also a question about where fentanyl came from. It does not come from a plant, right? This is not part of, it is an opiate. It is a synthetic opiate, right? I was married to a woman once who was a genetic engineer. And when we were newlyweds and I was a little boy, she took a course in chemical engineering. And her senior project, she had to make cinnamon. Now, obviously, there was no cinnamon involved. What she did was they break down and look at all of the different chemical components that make up cinnamon when it is grown. And then they find all of those different chemicals in different places and they make a recipe full of crap that you can buy at supply stores for experiments. And she made something that smelled, taste. I mean, in every way, this stuff was cinnamon, but it had never seen anything in nature. Well, that's the same thing that's done with opiates. Now, this is just a much stronger version of it. You have to understand, people, that when this was designed, there was only a couple of reasons that fentanyl was given to people. One is ridiculously high opiate tolerances, right? This stuff would not kill Mark. This stuff would not kill me. And it would probably not kill anyone else on the boat who had a very serious problem with this drug. Tommy Bird would probably not get snuffed out. But the trouble is the people who are just beginning to use, right? The people who have had a habit for 6 months to a year are a completely different animal, and the threat is there. The other threat is that because of how this stuff is packaged and how it is being sold, a lot of people are taking a shot to try something, as Mark said. When you're 17, 18, 19, it's like, oh, you got a drug? Let me try that. Acid was fun. Let me try that. Ooh, mushrooms. Let's try cocaine. And there's this, they use the term experimentation. And I guess in a lot of ways that really is what it is. They want to know what every single one of these drugs feels like.
Yep.
And
didn't
unfortunately,
sorry,
please.
Yeah. Didn't they back? I remember seeing movies at least, and I've never experienced this in real life, but I know that there was a fad at one time where they would stick like a punch bowl in the middle of the table, and everybody just came in and started dumping their pills in it, and it was, a crapshoot on what you took.
Yes.
And that's kind of what, and the reason I bring that up is because that's kind of what you're doing when you think you're buying something that it's not. It really truly is.
That is a thing that had really caught on. It's got to be 7, 8 years ago now, but they used to have these parties where everybody would come in and dump, whatever they brought into these, and people would go and just take literally handfuls of stuff. So I got two of these, make sure you get, we're all taking the same thing. And very often this was just stuff that they raided out of their parents' um, pill, what do they call those things in the bathroom? Help me.
Medicine cabinet.
Medicine chests.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. There you go.
They were raiding people's medicine chests. And, very often people don't throw stuff out. But where we're at right now is a hangover from that period of time. You understand? Because the big score was if you had come across what? Percocet 30s. Like that was the top of the food chain for a really great party. Well, they know that, right? So that's the drug that they're knocking off. That's the drug that they're counterfeiting more than any other. And again, you have to, when you talk to people about this, you have to be so viciously clear, right? Because if you say, one of these pills is going to kill you, they're going to go, I watched a guy do 3 of them at a party the other day. These people are lying to me. You really have to break it down and say to them, yeah, there's a pill in there that's going to kill you. You're playing Russian roulette. You're familiar with the concept? Take 6 cylinders on a pistol, put a bullet in, spin, and if it happens to come up, you're dead. That's exactly what these people are doing when they're taking Perk 30s on the street today. You are literally putting your life on a roulette wheel and spinning it every single time you do it. Now, there are people out there that are really doing everything they can to make sure that they're not going to check out. There are a couple of drug forums which I go to often to hear people who are getting high on this stuff in their conversations. I'm not going to give you the name of them because I don't think it's a great place for anybody on the boat to be hanging out. But for research purposes, it's a pretty good one. And you hear a lot of people there saying, whatever you do, don't do more than a third of any pill. Truth be told, they don't want to hear anything, certainly not from Captain Tommy. But 1/3 of a pill is no different than the hot pill. You understand? When you start to break that pill up, no matter how much you try to mix it all so that if you pull it into 3/3, you don't know that you're getting the same dose each time. The entire content of that pill could be in one of those 3 piles, ready to kill you. There is no safe way to do this. You understand? And that's really what came out of that interview I was talking about yesterday. This is not a safe drug. There is no safe way to do this drug. We can't come out and say, well, listen, I understand because you're addicted. So if you have to do this, here's how you should. Unfortunately, there's no way I can have that conversation with anybody because there is no safe way to do this stuff. You understand?
Yep.
Alpha fentanyl was designed for people dying and people with a ridiculous tolerance to opiates, because eventually you do run out of drugs, right? And not necessarily just because you're a drug addict. There are people who, have really horrendous car wrecks and they spend 3 or 4 years having to take an opiate, or someone that fights cancer and, goes into remission and then gets it again. And over the course of a decade, they might spend 6 years taking pain medication. Well, you're not going to be taking Loratab at year 6. Right?
No.
You're just going to continue to need more and more and more to get the exact same effect. So very often that's going to end with Dilaudid, or it's going to end with something that is time released, right? Yep. So they want to get you, and it used to be OxyContin 80s, right? Well, those have pretty much been drummed off the market except for certain hospice situations. So Percocet now makes a 30 milligram, which is basically just an OxyContin 30, right? Contin refers to the process of time release, where they take, the stuff and put it into one pill. So over the course of an entire day, that is supposed to bleed out into your system. So if you had 80 milligrams, you weren't going to get 80 milligrams all at once. But as addicts, what did we do? We crushed it. We did everything we could to make sure we got 80 right. all at once.
And I know that, I know that some of the shifting that's happening with the medication, a lot of doctors are now going to Roxy's instead of the Oxys, because it doesn't have the acetaminophen in it. It's just straight. Sure. It's just straight opiates. And I guess if you look at it on the outside, and my doctor explained this to me this way, there's a difference between being addicted and dependent. Yeah. Dependent means that you're using it the way you're supposed to, and that, yes, you need that medication to keep moving, right? Addiction is a total different thing. That's when you're doing the bad stuff to get what you need, no matter what.
Correct.
And so when you're dependent on something, those are the kind of conversations you need to have with your doctor, like with the Roxy versus Oxy thing.
because acetaminophen is really bad for your liver. And if
Yes,
you're going to be taking pain meds every single day of your life, the pain meds themselves aren't going to destroy your liver. But
yes,
taking 500 milligrams of acetaminophen 3 times a day is absolutely going to destroy your liver. So, one of the other things that's happening, and I talk to people every day from the lifeboat, people who are trying to quit, who right now go to a pain specialist. And this is what I think a lot of doctors don't realize. You go to a pain specialist and they write you a prescription for 60 Oxycontins, right? Or 60 Perk 30s. And by the last 6 days of your 30-day script, you're done. There is nothing left to take. Those people are then going to the street to try to find the same drug that they're getting prescribed. And you you get these people who think to themselves, well, 6 years clean, congratulations. Oh, I'm sorry, 8 years clean. Ray, congratulations. That's awesome.
yes.
Uh,
And
but imagine if you're taking four perk 30s a day, every single day, right? Now you go to the street and you buy a bag of them. What do you think you're going to do? You're going to take exactly what you've been taking every single day. The
yes.
difference is, as much as that might look like what you're taking, it's not. It's not even close. And
Full,
you're rolling with that.
Full Hope had a question real quick. Sorry, man. I'm
Sure.
gonna drop in there.
No,
She was asking what where does Vicodin fall in? Vicodin is Percocet. It's just name brand.
Vicodin. Vicodin
It's
is
oxy.
hydrocodone. Percocet is actually oxycodone, but they're very, very similar drugs in the lowest amounts.
Right.
So when you take a Loratab, you're getting 5 milligrams of the drug. When you're taking Percocet, not the 30s, but if you get a normal prescription of Percocet, you're also getting 5 milligrams of that drug. Both are pretty similar in terms of how much of the opiate you're actually getting in your system, and it's very much like Coke versus Pepsi, right? There are doctors out there that, for whatever reason, they write prescriptions for Percocets, and there are doctors out there that think that hydrocodone is the way to go. Very often, it's because of whatever the other ingredient is, because the difference between the active ingredients is very minimal. It's the anti-inflammatories or the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories or whatever the other thing put into the drug is, because very often, a lot of our problems comes from inflammation, and the doctors think if I can get the inflammation down, he's not going to need as much of the pain meds, and you're going to start to heal. So it becomes, they also have one out now called Vicaprofen, which is like a Vicodin, except instead of having acetaminophen, it is having ibuprofen instead, using a different, anti-inflammatory. But yeah, very similar, and same with Norcos, right? Those are all sort of the bottom of the food chain. So whether you get hydrocodone or you get Percocet or you get Norcos, or any of those, are all just sort of the entry level. If you get hurt and you go to a doctor, that's probably what they're going to write you a script for.
They don't
Now,
even
if you've been,
make they don't even make Lortab anymore, do they, Tommy?
they do.
They
Yeah,
do.
no, Loratab is still made, comes in three strengths, right? You can get them in 250s. I'm sorry, you can get them in 500s, 750s, and extra strengths. Now, if you were getting those name brand, they usually look like they're a white tablet with little speckles in them, and those speckles are either blue or green, depending on what the strength of the drug is. There are the only ones that really sort of got drummed out of the market was the original recipe for OxyContin is gone because it could be smoked and snorted and all that. So they removed that and got it off of the market. And the other one was
Darvocets are gone too, I think.
well, Darvocet is a very unusual drug in that, yeah, it gets written for very few things anyway. It's a really kind of a bizarre opiate. It's one that if you try putting in your vein, it almost does nothing. But if you inject it into the fat, it can it
Really?
really gives you a huge punch, which is a very unusual, really kind of an unusual drug. But I was thinking the time released version of Dilaudid. They made a pill that was the equivalent of an OxyContin. An OxyContin is just Percocet in huge amounts strung out over the course of a day. They made one called Opana, and Opana was Dilaudid with a Contin time released formula. And it came out at a very odd time, right? When the whole world was going, what the hell are we doing with all these opiates? And in a very short period of time, it was pulled off of the market because there was not much use for something that strong. Now, unfortunately, it was always, as happens with our government, is this has been a whiplash effect, right? Now, the people that actually need this stuff, as Mark was saying, if you're dependent, if you live with pain every single day for the rest of your life, then opiates are a necessity, right? That doesn't make you a bad person, right? It doesn't even make you a bad person if you're using them to get high. It just makes you addicted. But the for those people that truthfully need those drugs, they've made it almost impossible to get. Right? Everybody's afraid to write a prescription because they watched all of these doctors who were writing prescriptions go to prison, um, most of whom deserved it. I don't think there's any doctors out there that were being very cautious, that ended up in prison. It was usually guys writing 1,100 prescriptions a day, like literally that kind of just pill mill stuff. Um,
The
which
doctor
is
there
just
in West
terrifying.
Virginia did that. Remember that?
Yeah,
That's
yeah. There
crazy.
was
A
there's a
documentary
ton
on
of them.
that.
I sat next to one on Con Air when I was being I had to go from one prison to another. So you get on this airplane, and this guy sat down next to me who just didn't look the part, like really didn't look the part. And I said to him, "What the heck happened to you?" And he said, "Well, I was a doctor and I was writing prescriptions." I said, "Damn, how much time did they give you?" Life.
Oh,
Yeah, they're and again, it's always a knee jerk reaction with our country, right? Always. So at first, anybody could get as much as they wanted. The government said, "Whoa, that's no good. No, nobody can get anything." Well, the people that need it go to the street. And if they didn't, then there wouldn't have been the demand that was so huge that it has now, caused a supply that is killing our kids, our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers. It's killing 2,000 plus people a week. And the right now, the battle cry has to be one pill can kill, right?
yes.
That really has to be the battle cry. And you have to communicate the fact that that doesn't mean that you might not see somebody eat five of them. What it means is they didn't get the cylinder in that gun that had a bullet in it. It is feasible that you could spin that cylinder 25 times and not come down on a live round. However, keep spinning it, and it is a guarantee that you are going to come down on a live round. And that, unfortunately, is what is going on with this.
Praying for you, Linda, for sure. Her mom's in the hospital, emergency room.
Absolutely. And to those who don't pray, do what you do.
Yes,
Positive
exactly.
thoughts, whatever the case may be. But let's please do that, crew.
Yes, Linda. Yeah, you're awesome. Just by the way, she's yeah, Linda's an awesome person. She really is. So
There's a comment that says Obama tied the hands of the DEA for huge bust. I'll be really honest with you. First of all, that is a fact. However, uh, nobody in this doesn't have blood on their hands.
yeah,
Going back five presidents, everybody kicked this can down the road. Nobody really wanted to step up to the plate and be the president to take care of this. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. And um, what I would say now is if you get a chance to go to any, political debate, if you get a chance to go anywhere where politicians are talking, boy, get up and be the voice of the lifeboat, right? Get up and say 2,000 people a week are dying. What the hell are you going to do about it? Because that's really the question that needs to be asked. Now, I'm not taking away anything, right, from the fact that uh, the user most assuredly made the decisions
yeah,
that landed the user where they are. However, that doesn't mean they deserve to die. And unfortunately, there's a large segment of our society who views this as,
we're throwaways
you know,
to those people.
yeah, they're correct. Roxana Mathis says there is a difference, a huge difference. Taking it as needed and taking it to get the high is so different. You're absolutely right. And this is a key point, right? If you understand how an opiate works inside the body, when there's pain to deal with, it deals with it. Okay. When there isn't pain to deal with, it has a completely different effect on the body. As a as a person that was, just grotesquely addicted to heroin, when I would get injured, and there was, over the course of 30 years, I had some pretty good injuries. The amount of heroin I would have to do in order to get high would just increase exponentially because, there really is a huge difference when it's like the drug gets in your body and cruises around and looks for something to do. And if it doesn't find anything to do, then it goes to your brain and it takes away spiritual pain, it takes away emotional pain, and it makes it so that you just don't care, right? It takes away guilt, it takes away all that. If there is an injury, that's right where it goes. And as addicts, we go, oh, I got to do more because this stuff is busy down on my broken leg and I need it in my brain because I'm feeling guilty and awful. And it's a terrible, terrible thing that's
And
going on. And this, go ahead.
and one more thing I would add to that is the fact that, guys, your receptor can only hold a certain amount of opiates.
True story.
Once your receptor is completely coated, it does not matter what you do after that. It is not going to get you any higher. It just doesn't work that way. And that's why when you start building tolerances, you're getting closer and closer to having to have your receptor completely full to get high. And then once you hit that, you don't get high anymore. You're just trying to get well.
Not sick.
Yeah.
Correct.
So just understand that.
Great comment. Speak Life Garden Homestead and permaculture. No one deserves a life sentence for a bad decision that entraps them in their weakest moments. That is a beautiful comment.
Yes.
Because that really, people, is just what we're talking about. There isn't much more frustrating right now in my life than the people whose cavalier attitude toward all of this with Fent is that the addict basically deserves this. And that is something that it would probably shock you just how many people have that attitude. Because, I mean, I guess to us, because we do not judge here, and because most of us have had an addiction, one kind or another, we understand what it means to not have the ability to say no, right? When something owns you, we don't judge the same way that a lot of society does. But right now, there really are a lot of people in this country who just feel like, well, this is thinning the herd of people that kind of, got what they got coming. And, I have always said from day one, you got to own it. You absolutely have to own it. You have to take responsibility for where you're at in your addiction. That being said, you don't deserve to die for it. You do not deserve to die for it. And, this is one of those situations where if you hear somebody say that, give them hell.
Right.
Truthfully, give them hell. And the easiest way to do that is, you know how quickly you're going to change your tune when that's your son or your daughter?
Yeah.
That really is the only benefit of what's going on right now is there are a lot of people who are changing their tune because there is just not much there's nobody left that hasn't been touched in one way or another.
I want to say hi to Linda Pierce.
Okay.
She's a personal friend. Thank you for stopping in. I was talking to her a couple days ago, and she went back and watched the counselor video, and she's struggling a little bit right now too, guys. So just give her some prayers. Also, she had a pretty big loss. Her I'll let her share that if she wants to, but she had a pretty big loss in her life. So please give her some prayers and her kids also. So I would just like to say that.
Well, thank you. The people, Mark has been busy in a very big way. He puts up, there's a lot of questions that have been asked of the crew here on the lifeboat. And it really does affect what we do here. If you went there and said, what would be a really good topic, I promise you're going to hear that topic before the end of the week, right? This really is something that we take into account. We really try to stay sort of plugged into the boat, right? To the crew. This is, it always has been a situation where we feel like this is your boat and you guys just let us sit in some really cool seats. And so if you come across any of these questions that Mark is asking, please take the time to answer them. It benefits everything that we do here. Also, as I said in the beginning, we are rapidly closing in on the 3,000 mark. Now, again, this isn't for keeping score, I assure you. what this really is the mindset of, do you realize how many people you guys are helping?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
fact that you welcome people here with open arms. I put a post up on the Safe Harbor today that said, "Make no mistake, the reason that we're about to hit 3,000 is not because of what a great job Mark and I are doing.
right.
The reason we're about to hit 3,000 is because when people stumble onto the lifeboat, they're treated like family instantly, and no
Yes.
one ever gives them the what they're used to in the rest of the world. Do you understand how different that is? I
Yeah.
mean, maybe if you've been here a minute, you just have forgotten just how judgmental and the rest of the world is, especially towards people who are struggling with addiction.
Yes.
Very often, it's treated as a character defect. It's treated as a weakness or a flaw. And the fact that you have never done that to one person that has come to this boat is the reason that we're about to hit 3,000. So we wanted to take a moment to thank you all
Yeah. And if
and
there is,
say we're not. Go
if there,
ahead, Mark.
if there is something special you guys would like to see us do or talk about or what have you, please send that to me. We'll make it happen. Send it to Tommy if you don't want to send it to me. I mean, we'll make the stuff. Try our best to try to make that stuff happen. We
Absolutely.
really truly do. And something else, guys, please check in on the community posts from time to time. Just look at them once a day if you don't have your notifications turned on. And I get not having notifications on sometimes, guys. I mean, nobody wants their phone getting blowed up all day long. I mean, I
Sure.
get that. So, but I have been posting stuff in the community tab, and the reason why is because we are getting ready to go live with memberships, and I want your guys' input on what kind of perks you want. I mean, there's so many things out there that we can do, and one of the biggest ones that me and Tommy talked about, I think the crew really liked the idea, is having like a movie night
Yeah,
for a certain level.
we've had a lot of feedback. Thank you, Brandon. Really appreciate you. There has been a lot of feedback about the movie night. There's also been some other suggestions that we thought were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Tasha, welcome to the lifeboat.
Yes,
We're glad to
welcome,
have you
Tasha.
here. I got a couple of emails, or maybe they were, I don't know, it might have been text, but some people have reached out who do not misunderstand the membership thing. People, that's never going to mean that you're
Uh-uh.
not part of the boat if you're not.
Uh-uh.
We will continue to do exactly what we're doing, and it will not change at all. So have no fear. What we're going to do is put together, a way for a little bit more access to some other things that
And that's listen, guys. That's just something that the membership thing. It really does. It helps the channel. Number one, number two, it does make you feel like you're a little bit more a part of what's going on, and that's kind of why we wanted to do it. It's not totally monetary driven at all. It's
true
just
story.
yeah, and because again we're setting up tiers. We set that tier ourselves as far as the money goes, as membership fee and all that kind of stuff. But Tommy, I just want to echo what he said there. We are not changing absolutely anything that you guys are seeing right now. If
No,
anything changes, it's going to be an add-on. It is not going to be a takeaway. I
correct.
promise you guys that.
That's important that you guys know that, because we're not going to stop doing what we're doing. The other thing is this: there is going to be an opportunity for people to scholarship in other people, right? And I would be willing to bet the farm that, like no other um, membership deal anywhere on the big red button,
Yep.
you're going to see that happen a lot here, because
Yes.
back when we did the first t-shirt round, do you remember how many people said, oh, I want to buy a shirt for so and so,
Yeah.
or I want to
Yeah.
buy a shirt for someone that can't afford a shirt? This is a very different crew here.
Yes. And we do have somebody on the line. I'm not sure if you've seen that or not.
No, I did not. Let's
I think
who do we
is it
got?
Johnny? Johnny, you on the line or who is this?
It's me,
Oh, hey
Steve.
Steve.
How are you?
Hey, that's our in-house comedian. Let's go, brother.
Yeah.
Among
Why
other
did the
things.
deer go to the dentist?
Why did
It
the
had
deer
buck
go to
teeth.
the dentist?
Because why? What'd you
It
say?
had buck teeth.
It had
Oh.
buck teeth.
That's pretty cool. He said one earlier. What'd you say about the spelling bee? What was that one you said in the chat earlier, Steve?
What's more unbelievable than a talking dog? A spelling bee?
A spelling bee. Yeah.
Yeah, Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I also have an announcement to make, and I figure I should do it before he gets off of the show, because this is how you paint someone into a corner. Pay attention. This is good stuff. Um, my brother Johnny is going to be coming on to do a an interview, and uh, if you've been watching recently, you heard him come on here and talk about some stuff that was sort of an admission, to talk a little bit about some stuff from his past that he had not shared with the world. And I think, as happens often when someone starts to open up that way, is that it's. I heard about the lifeboat from Wages. Excellent. We do like him. I stay until the end, and you know that. He says, no. Well, now he's hemmed
love
in.
you, Johnny, for sure.
Yeah, now he is hemmed in. But no, I think it's going to be. I kind of think it's going to be epic stuff. There's a lot there. If you start just even before the first question is asked, there is a stigma to drug addiction. There is a stigma to addiction of any kind that makes it very difficult for people to come out of the closet. And very often, when someone gets sober, the first thing that they want to do is make sure that nobody in the world finds out anything about the fact that they haven't always been sober. And you know what? I completely get that.
Yep.
I really do. I completely get that. And I think the only reason that I didn't do that myself, because I very easily could see falling into that. The reason that I haven't done that myself is I knew if I did, I'd get high again.
Yeah, it's a level of accountability, isn't it, Tommy?
Yeah, it really is. For me, and I think for my partner as well,
Yeah.
coming out here day after day and talking about who we were reminds us of who we've become. And it's sort of that I'm never going to go back kind of a thing that really, that you people keep us on an even keel.
It's kind of like your phone camera, guys. Really, honestly. You back up, it gets a little blurry, and sometimes you got to move it around to get focused back in. That's exactly what happens when we see stuff like that. It's, we got to refocus. And doesn't mean we're completely out of focus. It just means that we got to bring it back in and make it look a little bit better, and that's just kind of what we're doing. And let me say, I want to say something here too real quick. Hepatitis. Okay, we all know what that is, right? Hepatitis C.
Yes.
There's a lot of false negatives in that testing. Okay? So please, for the love of God, get tested more than what you probably think you should.
That's excellent advice, because it's one of those things that, number one, can be cured now. Truthfully, not treated or anything else. It can be cured. And it's also one of those things that if you get 5 people that all have it, 4 can live the rest of their life without any symptoms or anything going wrong and just live a very normal life. The 5th one is going to die very young because of it. So there's no reason to let that happen. You absolutely can go and get treated. And
it lays dormant, doesn't it? I mean, it lays dormant. It'll just be like,
you can never know you have it until it really starts wreaking havoc. I am someone that has hepatitis C. You're way better off finding out about it and going and getting tested, finding out what your numbers are. Very often the doctor will say, there's no reason to treat you yet if your numbers start getting bad or whatever. But by the way, I don't think there's a state in the union that does not have something in place to get the treatments for free. Right. And drugs like Harvoni, which is one of the drugs that's used to treat this, is $1,000 a pill. There's 80 of them. So this is an $80,000 treatment that the government is paying for across the board. You can do it at needle exchange programs. You can do it at almost any hospital. I honestly don't think there's any place in America where you can't be treated for free. Go and get checked. And if you say, well, I've never used a needle, you can get it using a straw, believe it or not.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways you can get it. Zenwen, thank you again. And Lady Crispin, who is breathing down Seventh Son's neck here for the corniest jokes on the boat award. I used to be addicted to the hokey pokey, but I turned myself around.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Bing, bing. That had to come.
You should be ashamed.
That had to come from down under somewhere.
Yeah, you know what? What do you expect from people that eat Vegemite?
I was going to say, she pulled that sucker right out the Vegemite jar.
Ray
Just
W
kidding, bye.
says, I had Hep C and was treated. Would never have happened if I was not clean. I believe that. I believe that when people are using, it's the last thing on their mind
Yep.
is going in there and getting treated or doing any of that. But
Once you
the
get once you
go
get
ahead.
cured with that, I'm asking. This is a question I don't know the answer
Uh-huh.
to. When you do take the medication for that, and again, guys, we're not doctors. The
Right.
disclaimer at the front: please always talk to your doctor. Um,
Absolutely.
when you take the medicine for this now, and you get actually cured from it, you can get it again, and
You
you can't get cured anymore after that, right? Am I correct
it
in that?
you can actually get it again, and depending on what kind you get, see there are different genomes of this specific disease, right? I think there are either five or seven. I remember when it was four. But what happens oftentimes is, like, if you have the genome one, I believe is the easiest to treat.
Okay.
Some are more resilient and are harder to treat. But I saw in prison where guys were in the process of doing Harvoni, and they got genome three while they were getting treated for genome one.
Okay.
And yeah, you can find yourself in a situation where you're not going to be able to get treatment, and
Again, it
which
won't
is
work.
pretty.
Yeah.
Either it won't work. In some cases, yes, that is the case. In some cases, you will. My understanding is that you will not be able to be cured. Period. But very often, the
Okay.
people who gave it to you for free have no intention of doing that a second time.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right. Right.
in
Right.
prison, you have to take tests every single week, often two and three times a week, because if you're using while they're treating you, they're going to pull the plug. Like, they don't have a problem dropping 80 grand to make sure you no longer have Hep C, but not if you're sticking needles in your arms,
Right.
So it's
Right. I see.
yeah.
Thank you for. I didn't know the answer to that question. That was a real question. It's again,
Morton Pistol says, my friend got Hep C because his son that had it used his razor to shave with. You know
Wow.
what? We were always advised, like right after I was diagnosed, I got a list of things to make sure that I didn't spread this, and one of them was do not ever use a razor and then let somebody else use it. So there's probably a lot of truth to that, because that was one of the first things that they talked about, was anything that all of the different ways that I could spread it. That was one. So
Right.
and a lot of them are myths. Toilet
Yes.
seats, things like that. This is something that does require an exchange of blood or other bodily fluids, but it is a bloodborne pathogen, I believe is what they call that.
Okay. Cool. Thank you
Yeah.
for answering that for me. I'm sure everybody else learned something there too. Guys, this is what
Um,
we never stop
but
learning, right? I mean,
no,
honestly, I, we could be in recovery for 50 freaking years, guys, and there's going to be something out there you don't know. You should probably want to know, actually. I just think it's really awesome that you guys are talking to your kids. Full of hope. You made my night just telling us that.
yeah, that really was
That
awesome. Did you
was
see this?
which one?
Seventh Son says, not sure if you have noticed, but I love bad puns. That's just how I roll. But
Oh Lord.
I'm rolling my eyes to that one as we speak. Um, Speak Life Garden
Yeah,
Homestead and
that one had to
Permaculture.
be seen.
Yeah, that one did have to be seen. Um, yes, to Garden Homestead and Permaculture. Don't believe I ever welcomed you to the boat before tonight. Great interacting tonight. Good questions, good comments. To everybody that's new here on the boat tonight, God bless you. I mean it. To those of you who are fans of Chase the Heat, stick around, because this is going to be the tell-all book that we don't have to write a book for.
Well, we
Eh?
might write a book, man. Come on.
Yeah, no, there's room for it.
There's room for
Believe
it.
that. There's plenty to tell.
Maybe
So,
me, you, and Johnny can get together and just like write a book together.
Tommy Bird says my wife was addicted to the hokey pokey until we got married. Uh, good night, hugs, and love to all. We ran a little over, people. It happens from time to time, but I'm going to go eat something. I will be back tomorrow night. So will my partner. I think.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The two of us should be back tomorrow night. Same bat time, same bat channel. People, don't count on the big red button to send you a notification. Just know that every day other than Wednesday and Thursday, we will be here at 5 o'clock on the West Coast, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. I love this boat.
Yes. Me too.
I really do.
Ditto.
3,000 is around the corner, people, and that's just the beginning. We've got a lot of people we got to try to help. It's a big country, and there's a lot of people that need us. Big world.
Yes.
Um, Yes, and one for the algorithm on the way out the door, people. Please do hit that like button if you have not hit it yet. If you have not subscribed, shame on you. Hit the subscribe button and the bell for notification, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. But hit it anyway. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
and the reason you all tune in, this is a cat in the basket. Good night, everybody. We love you.